Hey there, Math 8. Welcome to the next section of Chapter 4. We are in the first section of Chapter 4. We talked about squares and square roots. Well, in this chapter, we're going to step it up a notch, and we're going to talk about cubes and cube roots. So let's go. Let's see. Our goal today is to be able to solve equations. That's right, solve equations that involve cube roots. We've already done the square roots, right? So what does this thing mean right here? This 2 with a little 3 above it, what does that mean? Well, I think we know what it means, right? We know that the little 3 means to multiply the 2 times itself 3 times. So that would be 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. A lot of people mess that up and say 6, but not you. How do you read this mathematically? You probably know. You read it 2 to the third power. But there is a different way to read it. There is the way the cool people read it. The cool people read that as 2 cubed, right? So from last section, we've got this, which is x squared. Squared means to the second power. And this section, we've got x to the third, which can be read x cubed. So when you have something to the second power, you can call it squared. When you have something to the third power, you can call it cubed. And after that, there's no more cool names. After that, it's just to the fourth power, to the fifth power, and so on. All right, so right here we have 2 to the third power, or 2 cubed. Now, what is the opposite of that? Well, let's look at that. Last section, we looked at square roots, and the square root symbol. That is the square root symbol. In this section, we're looking at cube roots. And the cube root symbol is very similar, except it's got a little 3 there. That little 3 is called the index. The index, right? When the index is a 2, like over here, we don't put it in. If it's a 2, we don't write it in. When there's nothing there, you know it's a square root. But if it's bigger than a square root, we write that number in. In this case, it's a cube root, so we would have a little 3 there. If we were looking for the fourth root, that's right, we'd have a 4 there. What does it mean to find the cube root of a number? It means to find a number that multiplied by itself 3 times equals the number you started with. All right? So for instance, the cube root of 8 equals 2, because 2 times 2 times 2 equals 8. Right? When you're taking the cube root of a number, you are looking for a number that multiplied by itself 3 times equals the original number. Just like there are perfect squares, there are perfect cubes. A number is a perfect cube if it is, well, the cube of an integer. You remember what integers are, right? These are positive and negative whole numbers. So for instance, I have a little table here where I'm going to pick some x values. And then I'm going to multiply that x by itself 3 times, giving me x cubed. So for instance, if I had 2, then when I multiply by itself 3 times, 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8, I get 8. If x is 2, x cubed is 8. What if x is 3? Well, then what would x cubed be? It'd be 3 times 3 times 3, 27. These guys are positive, perfect cubes because they are an integer cubed. But unlike squares, we could go negative. What if I had -2 as my x value? Well, then when I multiply by itself 3 times, oops, I said the number 3 and I wrote it, -2 times -2 times -2, you know what you get? Let's see, those two give you +4, and then +4 times -2 is -8. Or what if I had -1? That'd be -1 times -1 times -1. Well, that is -1. These guys are negative, perfect cubes. It's true. So perfect squares, they have to be positive. But perfect cubes can be positive or negative. See? We keep going. All right. We want to learn how to find the cube root of a number on your calculator. And it's not that easy, but it's not that hard. So here I have written the key sequence for you to do it. So if you look at my picture, I am using the yellow calculator, right? And on the yellow calculator, the first thing you're going to hit is the 3. And the 3, of course, is, don't know how well you can see it. Well, yeah, you can. It's right there. We all know where the 3 is, right? All right, that one's easy. Then you got to hit the second button. The second button, of course, is the green button in the upper left-hand corner. All calculators, I think, have a second button on them. On this calculator, then, this is the tricky one, you got to hit the square root symbol with the little x up there. Now, that square root symbol, you see the button that's got the little up arrow, and then above the little up arrow is the little square root symbol with the x. It's this little up arrow that you hit. After you hit the second button, then you hit this little up arrow button. Let me show you what it looks like. Second up arrow. I've messed that up. Second up arrow. Holy cow, because I'm not hitting the 3 first. 3, second up arrow. And when you do that, then on your screen, you have a little cube root symbol, and you can type in the number you want to take the cube root of. All right. So you should try to take the cube root of all 4 of these examples. You know, pause the video, try to do it, then unpause it and see if we get the same answer. Here we go. Did you get the cube root of -64 is -4? The cube root of 125 is 5. I don't know this one. The cube root of 91.125 is 4.5. And the cube root of -1 is -1. If you're not sure how to get those, if you do not understand the key sequence which gives you those, you should come talk to me. Here we go. Here are some differences between square roots and cube roots. Cube roots always have one answer. For instance, the cube root, well, you know what? Let's do square roots first. Square roots might have two answers, one answer, or no answers. Like the square root of 9 equals 3 or negative 3. Because 3 times 3 is 9 and negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. So both of those are answers. If you are taking the square root of a positive number, there are two solutions. If you are taking the square root of 0, there is one solution. It is 0. Because 0 times 0 is 0. And if you are taking the square root of a negative number, there is no solution. Oops, misspelled solution. You cannot find a number that multiplied by itself equals a negative number. It's impossible. So square roots might have two answers, one answer for 0 and no answers if you're trying to take the square root of a negative. But cube roots, they always have one answer. The cube root of 8 is 2. The cube root of negative 8 is negative 2. The cube root of 0 is 0. Always one answer. See? Okay. The main thing we want to be able to do is solve equations that have cube roots in them. So, as we did with squares, cubes and cube roots are opposite operations. You know, just like adding and subtracting are opposite operations, multiplying and dividing are opposite operations, and cubes and cube roots are opposite operations. To get rid of a cube, when you're solving an equation, you would take the cube root of both sides. It's really as easy as that. We're going to do this a few times with some different types of numbers. So this first one is the most basic. I have x to the third power equals negative 512. So I want to get rid of the 3 so that the x can be by itself, right? So how do I get rid of the 3? Well, I get rid of the 3, which is a cube, by doing the opposite of cubing the x, and that would be taking the cube root of the x. Well, I got to take the cube root of both sides. The cube root gets rid of the cube. They are opposite operations. So this side is just x. And on my calculator, I would take the cube root of negative 512. So here we go. I think it's probably 8, but let's check. 3 second cube root negative 512. Bam! And it is negative 8. It's really that easy. In example B, I just wanted you to try a fraction. You can type that into your calculator as well, or you could take the cube root of the top number and the bottom number separately. But the bottom line is, if I want to get rid of the cube, I must take the cube root of both sides. And that will cancel out that and leave me with the x. And on my calculator, look, boom, boom, boom. Uh-oh, cube root of 1 over 27. It's 1/3. All right, so both of those were nice answers. This one's not so nice. I want x cubed equals 32. So some number to the third power equals 32. And this time I'm going to round my answer to the nearest tenth. And again, I want to get rid of the exponent 3, which is the cube. So I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to take the cube root. And that will cancel out the exponent. And on my calculator, I need to take the cube root of 32. So I hit 3, I hit second, I hit that up arrow thing. I type in 32, and I get 3.1748 and some more. But since I am rounding to the nearest tenth, I look at the 7, and he tells me what to do with the 1, and he says, round up, baby. So x equals 3.2. And this brings me to the last one. I want to see if you could do a mixed number on your calculator. So we're going to try it. Same deal. I want to get rid of the cube, so I need to take the cube root of both sides. And that cancels out that. And the w is by itself. And I'm going to try to do this like you would do it in my calculator. I need a mixed number. So in my calculator, I could use the mixed number feature, right? The mixed number feature, in case you've forgotten, is right there's the fraction button. I don't know if you can see that. And so the second option of that button is to type in a mixed number. So I hit second and I hit that button. And now you can see I'm about to type in a mixed number. And I'm typing in 3 and 3/8. Yes. And I'm hitting enter. And look at that. It's 3/2. W equals 3/2. All right, so that is solving equations with cubes in them. And the last thing we need to look at is an application problem. So this is a picture of a cube. A cube is just a box where all sides are square, which means all sides have the same length. Like maybe this is the length, and this is the width, and this is the height, and all three of them are the same. Now, there's a formula to calculate the volume of the box, right? Volume is how much space is inside the box, inside a three-dimensional object. And you calculate the volume of a box by doing length times width times height. But because all three are the same, we do not call them the length, the width, and the height. Since they're all the same, we just call them sides. It's really side times side times side. Or, maybe you guessed this already, that would be the side cubed. This is the formula for the volume of a box. And we are now going to use that formula to solve some story problems. I claim that if you know the volume, you can solve for the side. And if you know the side, you can solve for the volume. We're going to see one of each and call it a day. Here we go. So this first example says the volume of a cube is 216 cubic centimeters. Notice that it is measured in cubic centimeters. Notice the centimeters are cubed, not the 216. So I want to find the length. I know the volume. I want to find the length. So what formula am I going to use when I know the volume? Well, I'm going to use the volume formula, of course. So let's write down the volume formula. This is just like we did in the last section. And now I have two variables. I have the volume variable and the side length variable. And I'm going to substitute my number in for the volume variable. The volume is 216. So I can sub that in for V, and I know that equals the side length cubed. And now I have an equation to solve that is just like these equations that we were doing. Unbelievable. So I need to get rid of the cube. How am I going to get rid of this cube? By taking the cube root of both sides. And I would get 6 equals S. And I would write the side equals 6 centimeters. Notice that side length is not measured in cubic centimeters. It's just regular centimeters for the side length. Only volume has the cubic centimeters on it. All right, one more, we're done. I have this one that goes the other way. This time, I am telling you that a cube has a side length of 3 inches. Find the volume. This time, I know the side length. I want to find the volume. So I'm still going to be using the volume formula. I like you to write down the formula before you use it, and then sub in the numbers. Let's see. This time, I was given the side length. So I'm going to sub the side length in for S, because S stands for side length. And I would have V equals 3 to the 3rd power. And now I'm ready to solve for V. To solve this for V, you really don't have to do anything except this. On your calculator, figure out what 3 to the 3rd power is. Let's see, that'd be 3 times 3, 9 times 3, 27. The volume is 27. Or I would write maybe volume equals 27 cubic inches. We always want to put the correct units on our answer. All right, you are ready for the homework? See you tomorrow.